Yeah, it's going very well so far. Nice, you all. So with that, reminder, of course, that this month, April, is God. Again, that April is testicular awareness. Oops, testicular awareness. Ooh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest episode of the My Coach Ben podcast. Firstly, thank you very much for stopping by, and welcome to the new subscribers and followers, etc., on the various social media channels. So, thank you very much for your investment in your time, let's say, in following the channel and supporting what we're doing. As usual, if the content floats your boat, remember to like, subscribe, press the notification bell, tell your friends, your fam, your colleagues, and let's continue to develop what we are doing here. It's going very well. Before we get into it, I would just like to mention that April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. So for all the guys out there, remember to check your crown jewels, or your Albert Halls as they're called in some areas, and just make sure that everything is in order. And if not, and if there's any concern, remember to go and see a doctor and get yourself checked before the worst may happen. So you've been warned. Prevention is better than cure. And with that cleared up, and without further ado, let's move on with the next letter. And following from last week, F for focus, we will be examining the letter G, and that will be for goal or goals. A very important topic, I have to say, and it's one that was previously looked at on the channel a couple of years back. And as I've said before, you can't have too much of a good thing. So let's dig into that and have a look at what is probably one of the most important topics, not just in career or coaching, but just in life in general. It's something which we all need to do, and that is, of course, having a particular goal in life. And let's start with a definition. If we go to the English Oxford Dictionary, we will see goals or goal defined as the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. And the example, he achieved his goal of becoming King of England. And I think for King Charles, we can say he's achieved that. So what do we get from that definition? We can say that a goal is the desired outcome of your endeavours. We can also say that it's a focus of your activity, the focus, as we covered last week. So it's something that you want to pay specific attention to or to focus on in order to reach your desired outcome or your goal. And as I've just mentioned before, a goal is something which is required in any area of life, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life, your relationship, your finances. Of course, we need some goals there sometimes, don't we, to make sure that we're managing things. Whether it's anything really, it could be giving back to society, it could be your friendships as well. So whatever you want to do in life or career, it's always important to have a goal, that you've got something to aim for in the short, medium or longer term. So if I can give a personal example, let's say in my work life, before I started in the particular area that I'm in, let's say I had a certain goal to do that, and looking back, it's clear to say that I had set my stall out, so to speak, in order to achieve this particular outcome and get into not just the area that I'm in, but actually the kind of job that I'm doing, something which is commercial and working with people, etc., and trying to achieve a certain outcome. And another example of a goal, a medium to long-term goal, which has kind of been reached, let's say, or attained recently, would be to provide coaching in the West Indies, where my background is, and it's come to fruition recently, where I gave an interview with Radio Jamaica about career decisions, and that was rather unexpected, but yes, goal achieved, but there is still a long way to go because there are many other sort of small goals that I have attached to that which haven't in any way been met yet. But I do have a plan, and that is the what, and that plan brings me nicely onto the how. So how do we set goals? How do we achieve goals? Well, there's a number of ways. I would say that when it comes to having a goal in mind, it begins with having a vision. It begins with having an idea. It begins with having a dream, if you want to look at it in that sense as well. It starts with having some idea of what it is you want. Again, whether it's in any area of life, but a goal is something that you wish to aim for, a certain achievement that you wish to make in the near, medium or long term. So that's something which is particularly important in your career. You know, you have to have a goal, you have to have a target, you have to have an idea as to where you want to be in X amount of time. We all know this interview question where they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Yeah, very nice. I think it would be better framed to say, what would your goal be for your career in, let's say, 2, 3, 5 years' time, or even your first 100 days in the job? What would be your goal? I think that would make much more sense, and it would be a much more practical and realistic question, really, to be honest, rather than where do you see yourself, you know. So recruiters, take note. So there's one thing to have a vision. And once you have a vision, then, of course, what is a vision without a plan? So you need to have a plan. You need to have an idea as to how you will set about achieving this particular goal. And in order to do this, there are many ways. There are a number of different ways that you can go about setting goals. So you can use, let's say, for example, at the Coaching Academy, they promote the GROW method. And the GROW method is where you have a goal. The R stands for the reality. So where are you at the moment? Your goal being what you want to attain, your reality. And then the O would be for opportunities or options. What can you do? Which kind of methods can you employ to reach that? And then the W would be the way forward. And in developing on from the GROW model, I would probably have something like grin, because I think it's important to have a smile on your face. And as well as having a goal and looking at the reality, I think it's good to have ideas, because ideas bring about opportunities and, of course, next steps rather than ways forward. It's the same thing, but what's the next step? What's the very next thing that you can do from now in order to move closer to that goal? So grin, grow, whichever way. There is another method as well that the Coaching Academy have, and this one is the cigar model. And this one is where you look at the current situation, you have a look at your ideal, and you look at the gap. So the G is not for goal, but it's for gap in this instance. So what is in between you and where you want to get to? And then the A is for the activities the actions that you need to take in order to get there. And the R is for review, which we will come to shortly. So those are three pretty good methods in which you can do that. And of course, when it comes to goals, they have to be measurable. And most of us will know the acronym S.M.A.R.T, which I always have to look up because I don't always remember with my dusty memory, unfortunately. But that stands for specific, i.e. you have to have a specific goal in mind. So it can't be, I'd like to be a footballer. Okay, but then I guess there are different positions of football, or you could say I would like to be involved in football, or I would like to be involved in commerce. But then these are very broad terms. You need to be able to be more specific. What kind of commerce would you like to be in? Which part of the commercial value chain would you like to be in? So all these very specific points. And then, of course, it has to be measurable. So you have to be able to say at which point is this goal going to be achieved, or at which points can I say, right, well, this step has been taken, another step has been taken. If you look at a career, for example, you need to firstly have an idea, you need to put that in practice, maybe to learn things, and these are steps that you can measure. You need to maybe apply for a job, you need to get a job, you need to do all these things, and these are different measures that you can use to say, yes, this is the goal that I want to achieve, or the measure has to be a certain point, which is specific. And then, of course, it has to be achievable. Yeah, so I could well say I want to be an astronaut, but is it achievable? Frankly, not. I mean, never say never, but I couldn't really see myself floating around in space, to be perfectly honest. But it needs to be something which is achievable and something which is realistic, and that you're not going to even laugh at yourself at, never mind anyone else. So achievable is always useful, and of course it has to be something relevant. So my astronaut goal is not going to fly really, because it's not really relevant, let's be honest. So whether it's going to be for your career, it has to be something that's relevant for your career, and of course time-based. And I've mentioned throughout the episode so far about short, medium or long term. And finally, as we know with all plans in life, we've all seen this chart, haven't we, where you have, it'll be this way as you're looking at the camera, so you have the plan, and you have the timeline, and you have this, from start to the achieving of the plan, and then the reality is kind of somewhat like this, and then you have a crash and a super high, and then you get brought almost back down, and then you reach the goal eventually. And I think review and adjusting is where you can look at each of these points. There are the highs where you need to kind of say, oh, well, this is one thing ticked off or one thing achieved, and then you need to continue. And maybe whether that's to bring the next step forward or adjust it slightly. But of course, definitely where we hit these little bottom bits of the journey, then we certainly need to review and adjust and get back on our feet and move forward. Because as we know, successes are made from various failures along the way. In the big reality of things. In summary, how can we summarise the topic of goals? Well, first we looked at the definition, and that was the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. And of course there was the example of King Charles achieving his ultimate ambition or goal in life, it would seem. And then we discussed the desired outcomes and focusing on the activity, and we've had a brief reference to the last episode in order to make sure that there's a certain intention and a certain concentration in the direction of achieving this goal. And we've looked at examples. There was a couple I've given certainly for my career over the years. There have been many goals, but certainly the goal of actually being in this area that I am is one that I've had for a while. And of course a situation with Radio Jamaica, this is an example of a plan coming to fruition rather quickly, but actually it could be a false dawn, because there is a lot more that needs to be done there. So it's the basis to maybe extend the plan, tweak, review and adjust. And that reminds me, it's something that we've mentioned on the how, which was ultimately to review and adjust. But before that, we have to have a vision, we have to have an idea. And we looked at the GROW model, potentially the GRIN model, if you want to have a smile on your face. And of course, the cigar model, we've looked at that as well. And also S.M.A.R.T as well, to make sure that the goal is specific, it's achievable, it's relevant and time-bound. Looking at the notes there to save myself. So there we are. Hopefully that's given you some insight and again some food for thought for the topic of goals, and maybe a slight nudge in setting some firm goals for things that you've maybe had in mind for a little while, and maybe this will help you take a step closer to putting these into fruition. And before we wrap up, I'd just like to remind you again that this month, April, is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. It's taken me a few tries to get that sentence together, but yes, I've done it. Remember that it is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, so make sure you check yourselves, your Albert Halls, your Crown Jewels, whatever you want to call them, or it, and make sure that you remind your male friends and colleagues and fam, and make sure that we prevent rather than cure or hope. So yes, let's please do that. As usual, if the content has been to your liking, remember to like, subscribe, press the notification bell and spread the word. That will be very, very much appreciated. And on that note, I bid you all a very good week or fortnight ahead, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. So until then, look after yourselves and one another, and I'll see you then. Peace. Your Coach Ben.